Yes. All right. So Thogal practice. I should have checked what is the Sanskrit name. It doesn't really matter, but I didn't have time to check what is the Sanskrit translation for the Tibetan term Thogal. But it doesn't really matter. What matters is the experience and the transmission, like it always does in yogic practice, and especially Vajrayana that we are practicing. Um, so um, I think that if nowadays there are public sources, books written about Thogal, or mentions in publicly published books. But in the Tibetan Vajrayana, this has been very, very not discussed publicly. But it's changing a little bit, I guess, because of the times are changing. The situation with Tibetan Vajrayana Buddhism is changing. So little by there is some discussion about it in public. But my experience of it, and probably yours, this is I think that everybody here has received Thogal instructions, and we have practiced together um, on retreats. So it is actually very, very simple what this practice that has been kept secret and only in the knowledge of very few people, what it actually is. Um, so, um, in Buddhism, three different bodies or three kayas are discussed. There is the physical body, there is the um, mm, energy body, which in its enlightened form is called Sambhoga Kaya, Sambhoga, which literally means like a pleasure that is even, even pleasure, or pleasure that is in balance. Some balance or even, and bhoga pleasure or enjoyment. And then there is the third one, which I usually translate as body of awareness, which is the Dharmakaya, emptiness body, the body of all phenomena that are empty. So, um, in Buddhism, most Buddhist practices are focused on that emptiness body, little by little gaining insight into the empty nature of mind objects, and any mind phenomena, including the very subtle mind, uh, substrate consciousness, called substrate consciousness. So there is a lot of emphasis on emptiness practice, insight practice, vipassana, laktong. Um, and then what is special to Ati Yoga tradition or Dzogchen tradition is that there is that the path doesn't end in realizing emptiness of all phenomena. Realizing emptiness of all phenomena means that one has purified the whole karmic body and becomes first stage Buddha. But like said in Ati Yoga tradition, it doesn't end there. And that's where it ends in a lot of different Buddhist lineages and teachings and schools. But then there is the enjoyment body practice or light body, rainbow body or rainbow light body practice uh, after that in Dzogchen teachings. And uh, it's kind of an interesting thing that, as you know, for example, Shakyamuni Buddha, he was um, um, if not the first, one of the first teachings that he practiced was these meditative absorptions or jhana meditations that are still practiced in Theravada Buddhism. So he learned this from his Hindu yogi teacher, from a teacher who was a Hindu yogi. And the curious thing about this enjoyment body, Sambhoga Kaya, is that it's that same body, but same body as is exercised in those meditative absorptions or jhanas. So, practice of jhanas, meditative absorptions, where you go into, when you absorb with blissful states of mind, blissful states of consciousness, can be very extended periods of time. And this is also extensively practiced in Hindu yogas. I have experience of that from my Kriya Yoga days. So the curious thing about this is that those meditative absorptions or jhanas, being absorbed in these very strong blissful states, is actually kind of Thogal practice. But the difference is in the crucial difference is in that emptiness inside, or the lack of it. Are you following me? So to divide that body of emptiness from the body of light, it's a completely super artificial divide. These bodies are actually two, but they are separated in Buddhist teaching because it is very easy to, well, I wouldn't want to say easy to make mistake, but you can't attain liberation. You can't attain Buddhahood if you get kind of twisted with blissful states. And this is, of course, what Shakyamuni Buddha, after several years of sitting under the tree, absorbed, found out that, it's a dead end, these blissful states. But when the realization of emptiness is there, whether in full scope, or let's say to a significant degree, as is the case with everybody joining this session, then you won't get into trouble with this blissful absorption. And that's why I made the requirement that this session is joined only by people who have opened Mahasiddha Bhumis, because this means that you have this stable recognition of the basic state, which really is necessary to practice Thogal, or to understand, really make things go click in one's head, what is the difference between emptiness body practice and light body practice. But then this is something that I've thought a lot throughout my own practice, when I've worked on my own understanding, getting to the understanding of what Thogal practice is. It is very, very simple. And an excellent example of Thogal is that, well, let's take an example of food, an analogy of food, from food. So you can have nutritious food, let's say, if you think of some source of protein, like tofu or meat, for example. It nourishes you, for sure, even if it's not flavored or spiced in any way. Not having spice on your protein is kind of like emptiness body practice. It nourishes you. But when you flavor it with salt, pepper, some sauce, some really good sauce, that's sort of like light body practice. So it's all about flavor. It's all about tone. It's all about richness of tone and flavor. It's all about expression. It's all about, in a sense, it's all about decoration. It's all about, it's not about, emptiness body practice is like having a transparent window or a transparent jewel like a diamond. But light body practice is those rainbows or colors that come from that jewel. So an excellent example of how Thogal feels like is seeing a child whose mind is not um, messed up, let's put it that way, like adults have. Adults have stresses and traumas and what have you. But when seeing a small child who is singing to herself, dancing, and just smiling, that is that pure enjoyment body, expression of pure enjoyment body. So it is really, really simple, but for us adults who have been, we have our own baggage since childhood and youth, and the karmas of past lives kicking in. It's not so easy for adults. So, well, momentarily it is. Momentarily it is, I would say, easy for anybody. But to have it like an established experience, that's of course a completely different question. But like I said, it's really, really a simple thing. What this enjoyment body, what's the experience of it, and so what we do when basic state is established in our style of Pemago practice, when it's firmly established, then we can, through opening of Mahasiddha Bhumis, then we can start giving attention to the light body practice, not only emptiness body practice. So that's a short introduction, and let's start practicing together. So sit in a good, relaxed, upright posture. Eyes open or closed, doesn't matter. So with this group of practitioners, you already have stable recognition of the basic state. You don't need to look for it. It's just here. It's a lived experience, lived recognition. Let your body relax in that recognition. If you feel like taking deep breaths, go ahead. depending on the stage of Bhumi perfection, depending on the stage of purification of the subtle body. And this recognition is felt in terms of the physical body. It is felt in different ways. It might be kind of, you might feel that this recognition is there, but you kind of only feel it through the head. Or you might only feel it through the head and heart combined. When the first 6 bhumis are purified, then it's a full physical body covered. You recognize the basic state with your whole physical body. It is recognized, it is lived like that. Just like in physical yoga, asana yoga, you do all kinds of stretches, and one opens the body through stretches and whatever movements. We do exactly the same in the subtle body with bodhicitta, opening the subtle body in full. So I will say a simple bodhicitta prayer on behalf of all of us. May all beings be free. May all beings be free. May all beings be free. Very simple, but penetrates, goes through the whole subtle body, through all the bhumis. So here, what you who have opened Mahasiddha bhumis, here you feel, again, depending on your purification stage, bhumi perfections, you feel more or less expansion. It's sort of like this natural state that you're already established in. It just becomes more expansive in terms of the subtle body, in terms of how the aura feels like. Okay, so here we have established some relaxation of the physical body while remaining effortlessly aware, and also stretched open the subtle body a little bit with a generating body chitta through simple compassionate prayer. Now notice how in this recognition there is joyfulness, just like if uh, when you were a child, or if you have children, or when you have seen children dancing, singing, laughing, smiling, see how that same joyfulness is actually in your whole being. It is as if all cells of your body have that same smile. As if our whole being is permeated with this joyfulness, enjoyment. Also is permeated with a subtle sense of bliss, not intoxicating sense or drunkening bliss, not gross bliss, but very subtle. Subtle pleasure. This is not a, mm, if you have never been pointed out this before, you know, it can be kind of a discovery. Aha, wow, I didn't notice that before. But it is not a dramatic discovery. Let's put it that way. We are simply switching from emptiness body to light body. That really are already united as one. You can't separate the two, kind of artificially you can, but both are joined. Bliss, emptiness, emptiness, bliss. And you simply rest in that recognition. First you get a sense of it, get a good experiential understanding of it. You get to understand what it means, what this Thogal practice is about, what the experience is. And then, you just make that experience, you gain confidence in that. Gain confidence in that, grow in that, see and feel, perceive the details of it, and finally completely merge with this experience. Just like in emptiness body practice, you merge, figuratively speaking, with this emptiness of all phenomena. So we are talking about very subtle sense of joyfulness, subtle sense of love, subtle sense of compassion. It's kind of like realizing that this field of empty phenomena is full of light, pure, clear, very pure light. Just like when after the rain there is some humidity, some small drops of water floating in the sky. When sunlight hits, there is a rainbow. Very pure lights. Recognizing with our whole being. I think that's the best way and the simplest way. There are other ways, but this I think is the easiest and simplest and most straightforward, without the need for external supports such as external light. Depending on your advancement in with purification, bhumi perfections, you might feel how that recognition of enjoyment body hits the heart. Or again, if it is felt in the whole body effortlessly. When it connects with the heart in a kind of revelatory way, in a new way, that's, I would say, early on in bhumi perfections. And again, with the whole body, then it's a bit more advanced. So this joyfulness, it's a like a full experience, not tame joy, not not tame anything. like a spontaneous, full, not controlled, uncontrolled, just like smiling or joyfulness of a child. Very full, sweet, a lot of taste and richness in that taste. We can, depending on our dietary choices, we can cook potatoes and tofu or potatoes and steak at home and spice it up in the best of our ability. Yes, there is some flavor and taste in that food, but when we go and eat the same food made by a master cook, there is uh, so much more depth, so much more richness in that taste. Sort of like the difference between non-organic honey and organic honey. Same but different. recognizing um, a bliss that is empty, a light that is empty, with our whole being, with our whole body. So here we are using our sense of the tactile sense as a way to have this recognition. We can also, in a sense, look at this blissful, full of light. We can look at it with eyes open. We can feel it with the body and look at it at the same time. Or we might be listening to it, recognizing through hearing. You could also say that you can smell and taste it, even if there's nothing physical in the mouth. You can kind of taste the sweetness of this light body, or smell it. So next time when you smell flowers or smell good incense, a light bulb will go in your head. Maybe you can, I'll just point out something that I said earlier about the blissfulness, about meditative absorption, or going into drunkening blissful states. If you consider yourself, let's say, a significant time before, maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when you had much, much less purification in your subtle body, just remember how you get some sense, intuitive sense, how your mind was like, how your emotional state was like, and then imagine how it would feel to experience this enjoyment body in that stage. Maybe you can sense into it that this would generate a much grosser bliss that is actually not different from uh, the blissfulness of drinking alcohol, or maybe getting high on weed or something. But now that, you know, much of the karmic dirt is purified, we can really experience the subtlemost bliss. In literature of Mahasiddhas, they use this Sanskrit term called sahajananda, uh, spontaneous bliss or natural bliss. Sahaja, spontaneous, natural. Natural bliss of being. So here we are practicing light body yoga for the sake of all sentient beings. For the sake of all sentient beings. For the sake of all sentient beings. Taking a moment to open up, to stretch the subtle body open again with bodhicitta. And then continuing with a recognition of light body. Maybe if you haven't practiced this way before, maybe it's kind of like, oh, yes, this is new experience. So this is revealed to you in a sense. But maybe you can also, and if you have done this before, you can see that just like that emptiness body was and is always in our experience, just has gone unrecognized, the same is true for this light body. That it already permeates our whole being. It has just gone unnoticed, unrecognized. It really permeates our whole being, our whole life, our actions, in whatever form, in whatever expression, without limitation. And in that sense, it's kind of wild. It's just, um, it's spontaneous. It just is like that. There's no lid on it. There's no rule on it. No restriction on it. So don't put any on it. Don't put a lid on it. Let this light body of yours, let the light shine. Dharma is always all about uh, seeing the reality as it is. And the same is true for the Sambhogakaya Thogal practice. You know, when we think about emptiness practice, we start to see ourselves and our surroundings in a different way than before. And then we grow in this as emptiness of phenomena, recognition of that, advances, grows bit by bit, bumi by bumi. Also the way how we perceive ourselves, our friends, family members, our surroundings changes. But here with Tagal it is not different. The point still is seeing the reality as it is. It's not different. But as you can understand, it's sort of like, a good analogy, a bit humorous, is like we used to have black and white televisions before. And we could see the images, we could see the sounds of black and white television, no problem in that. But then we got color televisions. Still same image, same sounds, but different in a significant way. Exactly the same thing with Dharmakaya and Sambhogakaya, emptiness and bliss. Whether, if it varies from practitioner to practitioner. Some people have visions, like visions of non-physical things, deities, gurus, realms, pure lands, beings, stuff like this. Some have it, some don't. Makes no difference in a sense. That's just a way of seeing, the way how we are wired. So that's not the main thing, even though, often when discussing the so-called pure visions in relation to Thogal practice, which means that, we start to have visions of gurus, deities, ourselves as Buddhas, ourselves in the center of mandala, mean like a mandala means like a sphere of influence. All this can happen. But we can have that same exact experience, same vision, just sitting here, just recognizing that empty, blissful, basic awareness. We can really feel and recognize that we are Buddhas in the middle of our own mandalas, karmically connected to many, many friends, relatives, family members, and so on. We can have that, we can see, we can perceive that what masters of the past have said is true. It is only a matter of practice. But anyway, the main point is that all Dharma practice is about seeing reality as it is. And it makes sense, like I used the analogy of black and white television and color television. That's easy to understand. But we live in the world of form and color. Forms and colors in endless expressions. And that's where we understand the point of Sambhogakaya. Meaning the body of not only transparency, but flavors, tones, hues, HUE, hues, that richness. This becomes very obvious if you go to a forest and practice Thogal there. It's so obvious, you know, that it's a pure land. Maybe less obvious in city surroundings. So, what I was saying with nature or a forest is that, it's hard to miss meditating in nature, but it is there also in cities, in the middle of concrete buildings. Let's stretch the subtle body open again by chanting together. May all beings be free 3 times. Inhale. May all beings be free. May all beings be free. May all beings be free. What is inevitable is that, when we practice Ati Yoga, because when we haven't yet attained full purity, inevitably there will be some, the karmic, what is left of the karmic body, it inevitably starts to kind of, more or less obviously, it starts to create contraction. So that's why we are stretching it open every once in a while, because we have to, as samsaric beings. We can't successively practice Ati Yoga from either emptiness or light body perspective without doing something about this. We just cannot. So we have to be smart and be sure that our practice is correct and useful. Let's continue few more minutes. Let's do 10, around 10 or dozen Vajra bodies. Tensing the body, all muscles of the body, while holding the breath with visualizations. Do in your own pace about 10 or dozen times. Completely relax after the reps. Okay, if you feel like stretching, opening the body,